Beautiful New York. Did you know that it's the third largest wine producer in the United States? 59 of its 62 counties have at least one winery, over 400 in all. As a meteorologist in New York who happens to love wine, I'll give you insight as to how weather affects each vintage and what tastes emerge from each growing season. With a variety of weather patterns, New York grows grapes that evoke flavors found nowhere else in the world. I'm Jason Goff, and this is Wine About the Weather. Welcome to Wine About the Weather. This week, we're on the ferry, crossing over from New London, Connecticut, over to Orient Point on the North Fork of Long Island, home to dozens of wineries. In this show, we're going to debunk two myths about wine. The first place that we're going to go to is the perfect place to start. Here on the North Fork of Long Island, which is gorgeous, by the way, the weather is a little more hospitable to the grapes than other parts of the state. For starters, we're surrounded by water on three sides. Speaking of water, the spring rains are falling, the bud break has begun, and we're heading over to Sparkling Point. They're the only winery in New York State that exclusively produces sparkling wine. Jason Goff.
Gilles Martin, nice to meet you.
Gilles.
Hey Jason, Rich Olson-Harbeck.
Nice to see you, Rich.
Nice to meet you.
Beautiful day we have.
We have a rainy day which is perfect for the vines. Let's check them out.
Let's go. Well, Gilles, we have a little wind at our back. It's not the prettiest day out here, but you like this kind of weather. Why is that?
Absolutely. We really need rain now to nourish the vines, to get the best development we can get on them. And then we have that little breeze that comes from the sound, and that will help us also close to harvest to get very nice, healthy grapes.
Now, the wind off the sound in the fall, that'll help to keep things warmer longer too, right?
Absolutely. That gives us also the advantage of being able to ripen other varieties like red wine varieties that demand a little more warmth to ripen. And this is what helps us to control the disease naturally.
Now, you have three different varietals here for the classic Méthode Champenoise, and they are?
Absolutely. We have Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay, which are the three varieties of the Champagne area.
Now, how much longer now before these are going to be ready to harvest? Now, we've got these little leaves.
Yes.
The buds are broken.
It is just the very beginning of the season for us. We have a bud break around May 1st. This was happening now for the last 4 or 5 days. And you can see those little buds are growing into nice leaves, and those leaves are going to develop into a full canopy.
So in 3 years, we'll be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor from these vines.
Not only the fruit, but the wine and the bubble that comes with them.
I like it. I'm looking forward to that. Now, Rich, the first thing that I noticed when I drove up to Sparkling Point was all the dandelions that were around. And dandelions are things that people like to kill. They spray things on their lawns and things like that. That's not what you're all about here. Tell me a little bit about your initiative that you've started here.
Right, this vineyard is part of a Long Island Sustainable Wine Growing, and it's the East Coast's only certified sustainable program that is used for the wine industry. And what that means is we're trying to use more natural techniques with the ground cover. As you can see, there's a lot of biodiversity. Dandelions are part of that, but there's wildflowers and clover, and that helps increase native populations of insects and other flora. That helps in disease and insect control during the course of the season. It's been great for promoting cooperation among growers in the agricultural community to use less fertilizer, to use less harmful chemicals. Also, ground covers help preserve and protect groundwater. So runoff of nitrates and other chemicals that can be used will not infiltrate into the soil as quickly, and also can be filtered through the soil because we're on a sole source aquifer. All the water that we have on Eastern Long Island we have to get from wells to drink. There isn't any water coming in from elsewhere.
So obviously for a sustainability initiative like this, the more people that are involved, the better. How many wineries do you have in this?
We have 19.
And what's your goal?
The goal is to get everybody, but we're just going to try to get as many as we possibly can. The more that join the program, the better we'll all be.
I like that. Let's get out of this weather, head into the tanker room. What do you think?
It's a nice weather. Let's
We'll
go
do
and
it
taste
anyway.
some wine.
I really enjoyed talking to Rich. He knows his stuff out there.
He's actually the founder of this movement on Long Island, and he's been a great asset for the area. We enjoy having him doing all this fantastic work.
Well, I'm glad to be down here into the tank room because what I wanted to think about was, you know, we see tank rooms all the time in our episodes of Wine About the Weather, but this is a little different because all you guys do here is sparkling wine.
Yes, in sparkling wine production, we start like a regular white wine, but we pick our grapes a little bit earlier to preserve more acidity, more freshness into the wine, a little less sugar as well, because we're going to have a second fermentation happening into the bottle, which will create the effervescence of the wine, the nice bubble we all enjoy. And I have a fantastic room that you need to discover. So Jason, this sediment is the result of the second fermentation, and the wine is going to sit on this sediment for 2 to 8 years, and that will also determine the size of the bubble. The longer, the tinier the bubbles are becoming. After that, we're going to have to reload the sediment onto the neck of the bottles. In the old days, we used to work on those riddling racks where the bottles were turned an eighth of a turn every day for a month to 2 months, depending on the difficulty of riddling. Okay. Today, we have those jar palettes that are machines that will do and reproduce the same gestural than by hand. It will turn an eighth of a turn, and it will last only a week. We are saving time, money, and labor.
And how many bottles are in here?
We have 504 bottles in those cages.
And so with all at the same time, you're kind of just wringing out that yeast and eventually getting it to the neck of the bottle, and we're out.
And we're out.
Now you have to get the yeast out of the bottles though.
Let's check that out.
Let's go.
So Jason, this is where the second fermentation starts. We have the tank with wine and yeast and a little bit of sugar. The wine goes through the line into the filler, and the bottles get filled up here and get capped over there. And the wine will stay into those wire cages for 2 to 8 years, where the wine is in contact with that sediment.
So we're not ready to drink this yet. We have to go back to that room where we just were.
Absolutely. We still have to wait a little bit.
Coming up on Wine About the Weather, we're about to learn that sparkling wine goes with a lot more than just chocolate-covered strawberries. Stay with us. Welcome back. Still here at Sparkling Point, heading up to the tasting room, and I'm thirsty. This place is fantastic. A lot of colors on the paintings and stuff. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Sparkling Point was founded back in 2004 by our vintners and owners, Tom and Cynthia Rosicki. So we have this beautiful French country house chateau that was built custom made for us with beautiful chandeliers, as you've seen, also filled with Brazilian artwork. Tom and Cynthia are big Brazil nuts, we call them. They love the Brazilian culture. They dance in the Carnival celebration every February in Rio de Janeiro. So that's where all the bright, colorful paintings come from, and also.
So cool. And all they do here is sparkling wine.
All we do is Method Champenois sparkling wine. We're the only winery in New York State to specialize in only sparkling wine.
That is very cool. And what I want to do before we get into the tasting is, will you show everybody how to open this properly?
Yes. Opening sparkling wine can be very dangerous. There are actually some deaths annually. So knowing how to open your sparkling wine is just as important as knowing how to drink it.
Well, that's good. I mean, those corks can come out of there at 50 miles an hour.
They can. There's 90 PSI in each bottle. So what we do is we untwist the cage, and now what we're going to do is hold this really, really tight, and we're going to actually hold the bottle at a 45-degree angle and gently twist the bottle, not the cork.
Okay.
And what we want is a little tiny sigh.
There it is.
There it is.
So certainly no big pop.
No big pop, because that lets the bubbles escape a lot quicker than it should.
Okay. All right, now that we're done with our message from the National Safety Council, let's go ahead and try some of this out. May I pour?
Yeah, of course. So here we have our 2013 Brut. This is our flagship wine, our largest production at nearly 2,000 cases. So this one is a traditional blend. It's of all three varietals that we grow here, the three traditional varietals, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Really dry style, really nice and young, gonna be really bright acidity, nice crisp flavors, but also some nice fruit forward notes like apples and pears.
What do you suggest it with here? We have a couple of different New York products here.
Here at the Tasting House, we feature exclusively a local menu of all New York State products: cheeses, charcuterie, cookies, crackers, caviar, anything you'd like.
Potato chips.
Potato chips. So here we're going to start with the Summer Cloud. This is from Catapano Farms, which is actually located right down the road here in Peconic. This is a sheep's milk cheese made in the feta style, and you can drizzle some honey on there. That is the lavender honey from Orient Point, and when you pair it with the Brut, it's going to really bring out those nice kind of toasty, nutty flavors to this wine.
So what you have going on there, to me, was that you have sort of the complexity of all the different flavors with the cheese and the honey and the sweetness of the honey.
Yeah.
And then this just kind of cuts it and finishes it off.
Yeah, the nice dry style wine can really pair well with a sweeter style like a honey.
All right, let's move on.
So next up, we're gonna try our Blanc de Blancs. So this is the 2011 vintage. Blanc de Blancs means white of white wine from white grapes, so it's 100% Chardonnay. So this one's aged inside the bottle slightly longer than our Brut, so it's gonna be a bit more of that kind of creamy, toasty dough brioche note.
Yes.
Some great citrus on the finish, and we have that paired with our North Fork potato chips.
That's easy.
So this is grown in Mattituck, just a few miles west of here, and the North Fork used to be covered with potato farms before the wine region began about 40 years ago. So this is kind of an ode to our North Fork heritage, and they make the most delicious chips.
It is. It has a little bit more depth and body than the flagship, but that's the style that it's supposed to be.
Correct.
And did you get up this morning thinking that you could have sparkling wine and potato chips?
It's a great pairing, some salty
why we're here.
flavors and dry flavors. It's really great.
Excellent. And then the final?
And then the final, this is Gilles' masterpiece, his Tête de Cuvée, which means head wine or head blend. This is the 2006 Brut Seduction. This wine is aged for over 8 years inside the bottle on the lees or on the yeast. This one's more kind of nutty, almondy, smoky flavors, almost like a caramel, honey, almost vanilla on the finish.
It definitely has that sort of an earthy tone to it too,
Yeah.
whereas this was really light. That is a little bit more down to earth, I guess you could say, right? I
Yeah.
mean, primo. Now, what's the cheese that we have?
Now the
with?
cheese we have, this is from the Hudson Valley. This is our truffle cheese. Truffles and the Brut Seduction are kind of this delicious pairing, really nice smoky, earthy flavors, brings out those kind of mushroom qualities to that truffle.
Wow, you know, it's amazing that all these things are so different. Like you can see the difference in the colors, but just the taste, definitely very more earthy tones to that as well.
Yeah, that all comes from that secondary fermentation inside the bottle. That's what leads it to such complexity. This one's also slightly darker in color than the rest, all due to that secondary fermentation.
Home run, sister. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, we just heard there's somebody outside running around with a knife. I think we should go and check that out. Gilles, did he get a little wacky? or
Jill,
what?
you know, it's bottling season. We're just had bud break. He's going a little crazy.
All right, I think we better go investigate that. So we're gonna go on from here to rosés, but Gilles is thirsty. You can't open this thing fast enough.
We're gonna try.
Okay. Nice.
Santé.
Up next on Wine About the Weather, we're making our way over to Conte Costa, where we're gonna try some dry rosés. Welcome back to Wine About the Weather. We're heading up to Conte Costa. This place already looks special. It sits right on the Long Island Sound. Hey, Michael.
Jason, welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. What a beautiful space you have here.
Thank you, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about this. Just, you know, we've visited a lot of different vineyards and wineries in this show, but this is different.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, we kind of fool you from the outside. It looks like it's going to be a little more rustic on the inside. It is a 115-year-old barn outside of Rochester, New York, that we had taken down, shipped down here, let sit for 16 weeks to acclimate to the humidity and the different air pressures, and then we put it up around a recycled steel frame. It's very, very modern and industrial. And it's also very green. We have the wind turbine that powers this building 7-8 months out of the year.
Wow. And that powers everything.
Everything. Until we turn the air conditioning on, that powers everything.
And the bar is interesting as well.
The bar in front is also recycled. Those are 8 old wine barrels that when you take the rings off the wine barrels, it sort of falls apart like an onion. So each barrel stave we stained and then put back up in that lattice pattern.
Well, listen, speaking of the bar, we just got done debunking the myth that you can only have sparkling wine on special occasions. That's put to bed. Now we want to talk a little bit about pink wines. Not all pink wines are sweet wines. You can have all kinds of different ones. Let's go and check some of those out. I want to hear your thoughts.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, Michael Cotacosta is the owner and vineyard manager here. And again, we want to talk a little bit about rosés. This was what I had in mind for just kind of hanging out and talking to everybody about rosés, and that there are many different styles that people may not be aware of. So have at it. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, ours is dry. It is not sweet. There's no residual sugar. This is our 2015 rosé. This follows up last year's vintage that won Best in Class and double gold at the New York Food and Wine Classic.
So people are aware of your rosés.
They are. We sell out, we make about 700 cases a year, and it usually sells out by August 15th.
Tell me about being so close to the Sound. I mean, this is such a beautiful piece of property, but as far as the weather aspect of the wines and the grapes and everything, what made you choose this location, or what is it that has you here with this?
Well, as you know, weather, especially here in the Northeast and all over New York, weather is our biggest challenge. And we rely on the winds and the salt air coming off the Long Island Sound to really dry out the vineyard after a rain or after a morning dew.
Now, does the salt infuse any kind of flavor into the grapes or the wine? Have you noticed that at all?
I think it does. I think it's a characteristic of our wines and some other wines on Long Island, is a sort of saline minerality that we get, especially in our whites.
Just because we're right here, as opposed to other places around the state that don't have that salt there. So you might be able to tell the difference, say, between your rosé and a rosé from the Thousand Islands, for example.
Yes, I think I probably could. I think it's that defining a characteristic, yeah.
Okay. Now, before we taste this, tell me a little bit about just the rosé itself and how the process is made in terms of getting this color and the flavor that you like. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, there's 2 ways to make rosé. One is to bleed it off a red wine. In French, it's known as saignée, where you're fermenting red wine and you'll literally open the valve, take some off, mix it with some white wine, and then bottle it as red wine.
So this is a blend, in other words.
This is not.
Okay.
That's the most common way to make rosé. We make our rosé by taking our Syrah, our Cabernet Franc, and our Cabernet Sauvignon, and pressing the grapes like white wine. And you'll see the juice come out, and once we get to the right color, we stop the press and then send that juice to the tank to get fermented.
And that's it. Then it goes from the tank to the bottle.
Correct.
Well, man, I'm salivating. Let's try this out and tell me what you think.
Sounds good. The first thing you want to look at is just the color. All right, so it's got the right color. It's sort of this pinkish salmon orange color, which is very reminiscent of a rosé from Provence, France. And then on the nose should be bright fruit, strawberries, raspberries, but then the finish should be very dry and refreshing. It's a great wine for pool, beach,
Summertime.
picnic. Out here it's a summertime wine. It's July, it's August. This is what we drink out here.
And it doesn't mean, I mean, anything that we taste, or whether we drink it or we eat it or whatever, you see something and all of a sudden, especially kids obviously, but you see something and you make your mind up of what it's going to taste like or what it's going to be like. And not that there's anything wrong with sweet wine, but you look at that, and because we're so conditioned to having sweet wine, but this is not that at all. And it is, to your point about being in summertime, it's refreshing. It has that dryness, it has that acidity to it, which can kind of cut through the heat, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Throughout the summer. Now, in addition to your rosé, you have other wines here, of course, but these jumped out at me, these 2 wines that are named after weather instruments, of course, show wine about the weather. So anemometer red, anemometer white was really kind of jumping out at me. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so our red Bordeaux blend with some Syrah is our high-end red here at the estate, and the white is a Chardonnay and Viognier blend. The name came from the anemometer that exists in the wind turbine. So we thought that would be clever and interesting, and just difficult enough for people to pronounce to make it fun.
Like Conacosta.
Yes, like we don't have enough things that are difficult to pronounce here. So,
Well, Michael, I cannot thank you enough for inviting me into your beautiful spot here and for
been my
tasting this
pleasure.
wine. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Wine About the Weather. For more, head over to wineabouttheweather.com. You can check out past episodes, recipes, see where we've been and where we're headed. We'll be right back. So we're closing out this episode of Wine About the Weather as more informed wine drinkers. We've learned that sparkling wine is not only for special occasions and landmark events, we've also learned that wine of this color is not always sweet. Remember, wine is fun, not supposed to be stressful. There's no wine snobs here, there are no wrong answers. Drink whatever you like with whatever food you like. That's the only answer. Wine About the Weather, then drink it.